I love it when God gives us those gifts and then gives us the opportunity to use them in a way that not only helps other people, but brings us joy too. Right. And here again, that genius zone and that thing, like the parts of your business that don't light you up, like maybe it's time to delegate some of those so that you can be more in the parts of your business that you do enjoy. All right. Next, we're going to hear from Kay Helm. And Kay is a writer. She is a copywriter. She's also a ghostwriter. She also has a huge heart for international missions and for ministry work around the world. And so, Kay, tell us a little bit about your work and what you do to help people.
Okay, well, it's all centered around writing. I struggled for a long time to understand what it was that I did, because in the early 2000s, God called me into missions. And so I was, I counted that as the things we were doing on the ground, helping kids, making sure they had food, making sure they went to school, doing, the communications work of that ministry. And there's the key, communications work. And it wasn't until I thought the nonprofit was going to kind of crash and burn that I realized the thread that went through all these different things that I was doing was the writing and communication. And I started leaning into that. And, so when 2020 happened, my pastor called me, he says, "What are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. And I don't know what's going to happen with the ministry because we can't travel. And then he said, "What would your dream job be?" And I said, "Ghostwriting." And I had never said such a thing. And so it was kind of a surprise to me when I said it. And a couple of days later, a guy that I know that I've watched him become a successful ghostwriter. And in case you don't know, a ghostwriter writes books and other things for somebody else. And you're a ghost because your name doesn't appear on it usually.
It's usually taking their ideas and developing them or making it sound good and prettying it up, correct?
Right, because people who speak and teach on a platform, on a stage, they don't necessarily have the writing skills, or they don't have the time they need to delegate the writing of the book. And so it's their ideas, and I just take it and I call it translating the spoken word into the written word. And so I do that. And so anyway, it was just, I told my pastor ghostwriting. 2 days later, a guy I know and I've watched his journey says, "I'm going to start a school for this." And the stimulus check came a little bit, in time and all of that good stuff. And so it was kind of like an obvious yes from God that I should do this. And a few weeks later, I had my first client writing my first book. And so since 2020 now, I've written 3 books. And I've helped with probably four or five other ones, and so I have absolutely loved it. And but in the midst of that, I've been always working with missionaries. I was trying to raise my own support, joined some groups, and got plugged in with some other people that were training missionaries and in their fundraising. And through that, we discovered that a lot of them really struggle with writing. And I just, at the beginning of last year, started Mission Writers course and teaching missionaries how to write for fundraising, and was talking to Katie about, how do I do this? And how big a part of my business is this going to be? And I found my journal from 20 years ago when God first called me into ministry. And in that journal, it said, "Teach my people to tell my story." And so that was just a huge yes. And I remember talking to you, Katie, and saying, well, I think this just moved from the sidecar over into the, kind of the mainstream of this is the thing I need to be doing. And
wow. Teach my people to tell my story.
Tell my story.
So cool. And so when you came to us, you were newly reawakened to this business idea. And again, she's trying to sell a program that teaches missionaries how to raise more support for what they're doing, Okay. Or nonprofits. You also include nonprofits in there, right? And so how do I market that? How do I get the word out? How do I bring people in, and like, if you've ever tried to sell something to somebody with no money,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
How do I sell something to missionaries to help them raise money when they need to raise the monne, So
Yeah. So talk to us about that obstacle and some of the things that you've done to overcome that.
Yeah. So, well, one part of my flamingo pink, I guess, is that I've been there. And I've gone the weeks without income, and I've asked those questions and wondered. I've felt those feelings, and I've been where a lot of these folks are. And what I also know is that God provides, and that I have testimonies of God providing, and they do too, because they wouldn't still be in missions if they didn't. And I have other ways to help them before they say yes to the course that can encourage them. I'm happy, I'm here to encourage and equip, listen to the podcast, there's free stuff there. And I'll freely point them to other resources that are great. I just want to help. And so I just come with that attitude of, I want to serve you, I want to help you, but I'll also give you the truth that if you're afraid to talk to your donors and say to one or two of them and say, you know what, this costs this much, and I'm asking you to make that investment or to help me to make that investment, and then hold me accountable to do the work. Now, if you want to succeed in a class, if you have somebody else pay for it and hold you accountable, so that's how I've really tackled that one.
Yeah. And so launching it this year, do you know the numbers? Do you know how many people have come through and what kind of revenues that has done?
Well, it's I've got about a dozen people in it right now, and I've probably got, let's see, I taught a class today in the coaching group, and I had 4 people on the call, and that's about average for you have more people signed up than what come. But I would say I broke even on it this year. But this past year has been a year of experimenting with it. Like, what does it need to look like? I've been playing with the content. The people that bought early, I gave them, they're getting like everything I do. Like here, just have all the stuff I do because you took the chance on me early. And I just want to really appreciate them because they let me experiment on them. And I get their feedback, and it's really helped me to shape this into something that will actually help people in the future. So I think what we did this year was we built a good foundation for it.
Mm-hmm. And one of the unique things that we did that we looked at with your marketing too is instead of marketing directly to the missionaries, we were also looking for some of those innovative ways outside the box. How else could we get this in front of our right fit people? Talk to us a little about some of those opportunities that have come up.
Yeah. So the connections that I have with other missions agencies and with other fundraising consultants, because the other fundraising consultants are the ones I was working with when we looked at this and said, one of the common denominators when people struggle to raise funds is that they struggle to write, they struggle to express themselves in the written word clearly. And so I'm saying, I'll come alongside your program and I'll teach the writing part. Like, I'll really get into the nitty gritty how to of that part of it while you teach them all the other stuff, and which helps me too. So,
yeah.
So we're talking about bundling. We're talking about, launching together and doing different things like that. So
yeah. Love that idea. And partnership, stick that feather in your hat for other people. Who do you know that have a compatible kind of program or offer that they have that you could pair your offering with and share the marketing and share the profits, right? That may be a way to get your message out to more people as well. You also had an interesting opportunity to, if I remember correctly, to be able to offer this to a group at like a bulk rate or a bulk thing. Tell us a little bit about what that might look like.
Yeah, so they haven't actually bitten on that yet, but I think eventually they will. We just still have a few small pieces to move around. But I met the leader, I mean, I already knew him, but I connected with him again at a fundraising event. And, he's like, hey, what are you doing? And I told him, hey, I started this thing called Mission Writers, and here's what we do. And he went, what? We want to mobilize, 3,000 missionaries, and and they're going to all need your course, and so we've been talking about how we can make that work out for them. And, so we've worked out some details. And what they want to do is increase the number of people that, they have a lot of people that come in for short-term trips. And then they want to increase the percentage of those that then go into long-term missions, because one of the stumbling blocks for them is that they love it and they feel called to it, but they don't know that it's something they can sustain financially. And there's not a whole lot of training out there for it. So they said, what if we catch them early when they come in for that first little trip?
Yeah.
And help them with that. And so we're trying to build that system out.
Right. And how amazing to be able to offer that to a larger group offering. Yes. Some of you may have things that you could offer here. Again, another marketing idea, right? Could I offer it to a whole group for a group price for X number of people, or for a group experience at a slightly different pricing, or slightly different, I don't always recommend discounts, right? I don't necessarily teach that, but a different offer, a different way to package it, where there may be some special bonus that means more to them because of the group that they're participating in as they go through it, or as they experience the product or the experience or the whatever that you have. Yep. So that's great. What has been the most interesting learning for you, coming from a world of nonprofit and raising funds rather than selling, to now transition into selling a program? Has there been a mindset shift that stands out for you, or what's been the most interesting learning there?
Well, I think for me, it's been interesting because I had, before I went into missions, I had a foot in the business world. I had a business before. It was a very different kind of business. And then I was in the church world, and kind of all of those worlds approach money differently, and the way they think about purchasing things. And, so the experience with all of those, I get to kind of mush those together. But it does make you think about the sales process a little differently, because you really have to spend more time on the mindset issues, because not only they're a missionary or a nonprofit. Now, which kind of missionary or nonprofit are they? It's kind of even, what stream are they in? What do they think about money? How does their organization handle money? Because every organization is a little bit different. And how is it taught in their stream? And you just have to deal with that. Fortunately, with our ministry, we've worked cross-denominationally, and so I'm kind of used to that. And so I see where God has prepared the way, and he's, I call it cross-pollinating, all the different worlds together, so that it's, I might not exactly know the next step or how to navigate it, but at least I have an understanding where I'm not just sitting there going, well, those people, which is a great first step. You don't want to be angry at your customers.
Love it. Love it. And so what is the one message you want our friends here to leave with today? What's the one thing you think they need to walk away with?
I'm going to take a lesson from you that you have asked me on a number of occasions. When I come in, and it's funny because when I teach, I simplify things so that people can understand complex ideas, and I simplify them. But when I do things for myself, I do the opposite. I take things that are simple and I blow it up into this big complicated mess of whatever. And then I have the voice of Katie who says, what if it were easy? So I think that would be the thing, is just to ask yourself, what if it were easy? What if I can't do it all? What's the one thing I can do? And start there.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
How could this be easy?
Yep.
Right? How could this be easy? What could we do to make this easy? What's the one thing, the one next step I need to take? Love it. Thank you so much for being here, Kay. I appreciate your input and
Thank you.
that insight. Thank you.